This video will cover the assembly of a motorised openFrame system that will be placed at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. We're starting off with a base layer, as you can see here. And on top of it, we're going to place a camera slider layer. You can see the mirror sliding there. We just place it on top of the base layer and rotate it until the dowel pins on the layer below engage with the holes in the layer we're adding. Then we can tighten the clamps using this hex driver. Once this clamp is tightened up, we'll just rotate the frame and do the corresponding one on the other side up. You may also wish to do up the grub screws in the layer if you have any. And we'll just show a close-up of the clamp here. You can see I'm doing the top screw, then the bottom one. Now we're going to add a tube lens spacer layer, and that's going to make sure that the tube lens, which will be held by the layer above, doesn't clash with the slider in the layer below. Again, I'm just doing up the clamps and the one on the other side as well. Once these are done up, we'll add the next layer, which is a illumination layer. Now in this case, this is a 3-position slider layer, and that can accommodate 2 cubes and 1 pass-through position. You can see the cube inside here. I'm going to just place it on the layer carefully to ensure that the tube lens gently slides through the hole in the spacer layer, and then rotating it until the dowel pins engage, and of course then doing up the clamps. And again, this clamp on the other side gets tightened, top then bottom screw, and then this layer is securely attached. I will note that this is a proprietary layer from Cairn Research, and you can see it has a slightly different attachment screw style. There are grub screws here, here, and here at 3 points around the circumference. Next, we're going to add a focus layer. This is a modified focus layer, again provided by Cairn Research, and you can see that it uses a pizza drive here with a control unit there. And as you can see, it also has a 4-position objective turret on top. There is also a C-clamp on the side to hold an illumination arm, and there are various apertures at the base and on the sides to allow optical access. You can place a mirror cube holder in there to allow light to be reflected up to the turret. I'm going to place this on top of the illumination layer and rotate it until the dowel pins engage, and then do up those 3 screws that I was showing earlier. And that's 1, 2, and then finally number 3. The next layer we're going to place on is this stage adapter layer. You can see the dovetail at the bottom, these 3 legs at the top which will hold the XY stage, and this block on the side which will hold the trans-illumination pillar. I'm going to offer it up to the layer beneath, and then just check that this recess here corresponds to the location of the motor for the Z drive. I'll gently place it on top and ensure it's located, then do up the grub screws on the layer beneath. Once the grub screws are all tightened up, I'll be able to install the XY stage, and that is simply a commercial XY stage from Marzhauser. So I'm just checking that all 4 grub screws are done up. And once we're happy that they're all securely fastened and that the top layer won't move, then we add the XY stage. Once we're happy that the top layer is secured, the XY stage can be offered up, noting that there are holes here, here, and here where screws are placed in, and these will go on top of these 3 corresponding posts. I will just carefully align one of the holes to one of the screws, and then do that up. Not completely, so that we still have a little bit of adjustment left for the other two. And once the other two are tightened, then the XY stage is held securely. We'll just check for that. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at the transillumination pillar, and you can see the 4 holes I've indicated here correspond to the 4 screws that are in the transillumination pillar, and I will just do those up by pushing one in and offering up to a hole in the block. Once that locates, I can partially tighten it, and then I can start doing the diagonal opposite one up, and then the 2 on the other diagonal. Again, it's best not to do them completely up on the first pass, because then we can actually have a little bit of wriggle room to make sure the others go in properly. Once the frame is attached, I can then get onto the business of putting in the electronic connections, and for that purpose I'm just going to reorient the frame and move the camera so that it's easier to see them. Now, first of all, we're going to attach the controls for the Z drive. You can see here a data connection and a power connection. I'm going to plug in the power connection. So here's the power supply for the Z drive, and the connector I'm just going to plug into here, to the left of the data connection. The next step is then to take the data cable, which is attached to the hand control unit, and you can see that here. And then we just plug it into the data connector there and screw it up using a little jeweler screwdriver there, just to make sure it's securely attached and doesn't come out. Okay, once the connector is attached, then we can move on to the next part. I'll just put the control unit down here, and we'll move on to putting in the camera. So what I'm going to do is just remove the port plug and slide the camera in its place. So all I've done is undo the clamp a little, and I'm now redoing it up. Now the camera is in place. Once the camera is in place, we can move on to attaching its various connectors. So I'll just reposition it so it's easier to see, and we're going to have the power, data, and breakout connectors to put in. So we'll start off with the power connector. You can see that here. And the power in this case is actually supplied through the breakout box, so we'll just pick up the breakout box next. You can see on the side of it that it has a connector here for 12 volts out and one here for 12 volts in. So the 12 volts out goes to the camera, the 12 volts in goes to the power supply. If you're not using the breakout box, you can just plug the power supply directly into the camera. So we're just attaching the breakout connector by orienting it and screwing it in. Here's the power supply, and we'll just plug that into the 12 volts in on the breakout box, as you can see here. And then we'll leave that for just pushing in the IEC plugs later. Next, we're going to have a look at this LED, which we're going to put in for transillumination. That has a connector like this, which we will plug into the back of this LED controller into that port there. So I'm just going to push it in once the alignment is right, and then screw the retaining connector there. Great. Next step is to put in the actual LED into the transillumination pillar. You can't see it because it's out of frame here, and I'm just going to put down the controller box there. I'll then attach the power to the LED. You can see the power supply here, and I'm just going to plug that into this connector on the back of the control box. The final thing that we're going to do is to plug in the last data connector to the hand wheel for the Z drive, and you can see the USB just goes in there and the other end goes to the computer, and that's that. One final thing that's useful to note is that we've got a lot of wires lying around, and one thing you can use to tidy them up is Velcro. So here I'm just cutting off a bit of a real Velcro, and you can just loop it back on itself to make a secure attachment that'll hold cable bundles together. In this case, I'm just going to put it around a couple of random cables to demonstrate the idea. And there we go.